right, thank you guys for watching. Welcome to Disruption, the show that digests and debates ideas that affect and impact the world of strength sports and bodybuilding. I'm your host, Nick Lefebvre, and I'm here with co-host Christian Matyi.
I'm drinking iced tea again. That's what my arm is doing.
Shocker.
Got my tea. This is how we do the show.
Those in the South, that is not sweet tea.
Ain't sweet tea. This is northern tea.
This is, God knows you don't need any more sugar.
Yes, so people know what's going on. I've been carb loading with Skittles every episode of this new podcast. Anyway.
He's getting his weight up.
Yeah.
Early over here.
I'm a lumberman. Anyway. What are we talking about today? Are we talking about my lumberman, or what are we doing here?
Yeah. Keep your shirt on, buddy.
Yeah.
All right, so today we're going to talk about a very controversial topic between the two of us, at least. I know things might get a little bit heated, by which I mean I might get a little bit heated because I thoroughly disagree with a lot of what Christian has to say. So we're going to talk
Don't set the bar so high.
We're going to talk about going into a contest with the mindset of winning. When you show up, you go to a contest, you've dieted down for 6 fucking months, whatever it is, you're miserable.
Or powerlifting, or strong, anything.
Anything, yeah, okay. I mean, particularly, I was referring to bodybuilding. That's kind of what I do more of.
Doesn't show.
No, it does not yet. So, anyways, my mindset is, and the reason I'm saying bodybuilding is because, like, I can't say that this is true for powerlifting. I haven't had that mindset where I'm going to go in and win. I don't have that ability. I'm not that strong. So for bodybuilding, when I go to a competition, my goal is to get my body, get my position into a place where I'm going to do the best I can. That doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to result in a win. In fact, if I don't win, I'm not that crushed sometimes. But
yeah, right.
I've come to terms with it. But at the end of the day, you know, I'm not showing up to lose or play second. That's not why I'm there. That's not what I want. That's not what my end result is. You know, that's not what I'm shooting for in this sport. And so part of that is I don't want to show up to a competition if I'm not peeled enough, if I'm not conditioned enough, if I'm not in good enough shape to at least stand up there and challenge some of the guys that are going to do the best.
Well, I mean, and like, let me be clear. Nick set me up to be like totally opposite. And I do believe that going in for a win is a great thing, and you softened it. You said, do my best. And I'm talking about these guys who are
because I'm not going to win every time, and not everybody is going to win every time. And there's nothing wrong with that. But at the end of the day, you know, I guess your point is what I've heard you say previously is it's okay to do a show, just to do a show, just to get it done. And I disagree with that. I think that impedes the competitiveness of the sport. I mean, at so many natural drug-tested events or even the NPC shows we've been to, we've seen people show up, and quite honestly, they were like a solid 10 pounds away from being where they should be in terms of conditioning.
And let's be real. Let's be totally real. Like, don't paint me too far into a corner. I don't think
okay.
You know, toss me, like, don't hit me too hard. When I say I don't think that it should be just to do a show. I think that there is a reasonability to taking your lumps. And sometimes if I'm like, and I've coached for years, if an athlete is like close, or we'll say, I hate to use this term, but close enough to, you know, being competent, we'll say, in a contest, and this is their best, I think that, like, it's one of those things where, but you know, they're not where they ultimately will be someday. I think that it's like, look, why don't we go in and take the lumps and learn what it takes. And what that does is that then produces an athlete who may be going in looking at a 5th place, and like knowing ahead of time that he might only get 6th or 5th or something. Like, he knows that, but also he knows why he's there. I think that there's a place for that. I think the problem is when that mutates into everyone in the pool and do whatever you want like that. I don't agree with that. I think that if you're going to say I'm going to enter a contest, part of that idea is, you know, the contest part, that if you're going to do it, you should be competitive. That's what a competition is. Yep. So I do agree with that. I just think that sometimes this idea that if I am not going to place like the best I could ever place is a destructive idea. Like, I think that sometimes you can go in saying, I could do better, but I always say like, well, you not for this contest. You did your best, so that is your best. So bring that. As opposed to people say, I can't do this contest. I'm 10 pounds away. Well, this was your best. Go take your lumps. See what that gets you. You know?
I think that can be acceptable for like a first or second time competitor. If someone get their feet wet and they need to get on stage, get over the jitters and just experience it, I think that's easily justified by saying you just need to do the thing, get the ball rolling, show up looking better next time. I do condone that. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, especially some people, myself included, didn't know what to expect when I showed up the first time. I kind of did it. I had a few friends giving me some pointers on like how lean I should be and stuff like that. But going into it, when I started that diet, I had no clue how lean I needed to get. And then after, 12, 14 weeks, whatever it was, that was like kind of a fast prep. I mean, I was coming down from like being, kind of obese, like 300 pounds. I was dieting for like a year, but I had no clue that I was required to get as lean as I got. And I had some friends tell me like, no, you need to like step this to another level. That was kind of flooring to me. I was like, oh shit. And then I saw some pictures online, did some research, what I was getting into. And I kind of knew, I'd always wanted to be competitive in bodybuilding. Like that was my thing. I was 21 at the time, I think. So like 5 years ago. And, it was a complete surprise, but at the end of the day, I learned a lot from that. I improved on it next time. And then I improved on that the time after, most recently last year when I competed for my third season.
But here's the thing. I think here's the thing if we're going to talk just bodybuilding for a second, God's most boring topic. If we're going to talk just bodybuilding for a second, I do think even for a seasoned competitor, doing a contest when you're not at your best can work. I think that there is a space for that. And that's where we disagree. That's where you and I disagree. I think that a competitor who's done like 5, 7, 12 shows, who's prepping, doesn't hit their best, but goes into a contest, there is a way to make that valid. And the way I see to make that valid is like, okay, well, I don't have my best. What can I get? And if you can identify things you want to get out of that, then you can step away. What I get frustrated with these guys who are like, yeah, I'm not my best, I'm bailing out of the show. I'm like, no, you're not learning now. Like, if you were, excuse me, I'm still sick. If you were, trying to learn something, then figure out what it is you're going to learn. That this sport should be about.
What would somebody learn from that experience? If you've been putting in, because let's be honest, it takes a long time to build muscle, whether you're using drugs or not. So realistically, if you've been putting in the work and getting bigger, and for drug tested bodybuilders, I think that's going to be a few years in between competitive seasons, minimum. You look at the guys that do really well, and maybe once they reach a certain point, they'll compete a few years in a row, but realistically, they're taking years in between, the time that they're competing. The reason for that is to build size. So if you're doing what you need to do in the off season, you should be putting on size. And then if you're doing what you need to do during your prep, there's no way you're going to come in not ready. If you're doing what you need to do and you've done it a few times at that point, you're going to get lean enough. There's typically, except for circumstances.
Well, let's make the gap. Let's make the gap a little.
Health and things like that. There's no way that you can't get lean enough.
Let's make the gap more specific then. Let's say that my
point being is, if you put in the work and you've done what you're supposed to do, that would be an improvement. You're going to come in looking better. There's no reason that somebody who's been doing this, 5 or 6 times or something like that, as you're saying, there's no reason that they would come in unprepared. They know what to expect. They know what to bring. And realistically, if they're like 4 weeks out, 2 weeks out, and they're like, shit, I mistimed it, I fucked up. There are enough shows going on in most places. There's nothing wrong with waiting a couple weeks, doing the next one.
I have myself several times done what I call a fat show. One reason I did it one time was to see just where, I'm going to give you 3 scenarios, by the way. The first reason was just where do their bottom cut off? Where is their cutoff? How much can my posing, my presentation play to my advantage if I'm not perfectly diamond cut. And I learned that there is a point where there's nothing I can do to help myself. That's scenario one. That I could say, all right, let's see where your bottom is. Now that's a weak one, but that's a scenario. The second scenario is like, okay, I'm going to go in and do a show where I'm not perfect because I'm trying to figure out something else about the competitive process that I will use later at a contest I want to do a killing at. And I think that's a reasonable thing. You're close enough. You're not perfect. The third one, and this one's probably the most poignant that I've done. A competitor wanted to compete with me. And I wasn't there, but the date is set. I can't budge that date because that's when that competitor is doing his best or her best. And I'm like, you know what? I said I was going to walk through this fire. I'm not at my best. I know what my best is and know what I had to do, and I didn't do it. Can I walk through this gauntlet anyway? Now, let's be real. I competed enough to know where, like I said, I knew where the bottom of my fat limit was. Like I knew where the bottom was, right? Where I don't go below this. And that was a reason I did a fat show, was to figure out where I could no longer be competitive. And I was at least above that. But I would go in, I must have done it 7 or 8 times in my life, go in knowing I was nowhere near my best. Sometimes surprising myself, placing relatively well at not my best, which also taught me about, you know, sometimes coming in first, like taught me about, okay, well, how flexible was this contest? You know what I mean? And it was, but for the behest of someone else, to be there, like, I'm competing with you. This sport lacks camaraderie. This sport lacks fellowship. The sport, and I said, you know what? If it means I'm the fatty cakes on stage, for the sake of encouraging another bodybuilder to stick with it, I'll do it. I'll be the fatty cakes on stage. I don't mind sacrificing a plastic trophy for that.
Oh, so you're a martyr?
It was kind of like, it's obnoxious, but it is kind of like, what about the guys who've already competed a bunch of times? They should all be fucking oh, excuse my French, so I go fucking again. They should all be martyring themselves sometimes. If we want the sport to get better, if we want it to be harder, we need more competitors. Sacrifice yourself a little bit, guys. You've already gotten a few trophies. Jump in and encourage your boys to follow you in, even if you're not at your best. To me, that seems like a very valid, I'm not going to win reason to do a contest.
Oh, your faux nobility is killing me.
Oh, he's just, see, this is where it starts.
No, I mean, to be fair, we thought this would be a good topic because if we'd had this discussion 2 years ago, it would have been
Nick is in it to win it.
Would have been a different conversation.
What changed for you about that, though? Like, about what made you focus more on what you can learn versus what you can win?
Well, I realized that, you know, just the shape you're coming in, first of all, is never going to be your best. You know, you're always going to improve from there. There's always going to be shit that you see that was wrong that you can improve on. Always, always, always. Even if you think you're coming in and you've done the best you can. Nope.
Yeah. Because the body's always changing, so there's always a new best.
Exactly. Yeah, absolutely, man. And you know, it's one of those things where once you're in that mindset, you're like, shit, I'm never lean enough. Or if you do get lean enough, sometimes what some people run into, you know, and my issue this last season was the new standard is like fully striated glutes. And I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's a muscle maturity thing, but that shit was not fucking happening.
I think what it is that, you know, because whether they admit it or not, men want to look at each other's butts. No.
Only if they look like walnuts, right?
Hey, are you smuggling a pack of hot dogs in there? That's what, you
know. And I forgot what I was saying. We kind of got sidetracked there, and I don't want to go down this like diatribe or like rabbit hole of, you know, my experience necessarily, but the point was, you know, my goal was to come in a lot leaner, and I did, and I still nowhere near striated glutes. Wasn't going to happen, and I got still very lean, the leanest I've ever been, and everything was like grainy and striated except my glutes, and you know, my hamstrings were still lacking as well. So I know that those are my weak points. But my point is, it kind of reset the standard of where I thought I had to be at. And you know, at that point, it's like I have been dieting that long. I knew I was competitive. I'm not going to walk away at that point. You know, yeah. Sure, you know, it was discouraging to go at this again and not be anywhere near what you envision in your mind. But at the end of the day, that's what the sport is. If you're constantly obsessing about, shit, this is never going to be good enough. You know, it's not a healthy mentality to have. You're going to you're going to back yourself into a corner, and
it's going to kill the sport. And that's what's killing the sport. If you think about it, that everyone, well, this isn't for another show because we're going to wrap this up. Everyone wants the pro card. Everyone wants the high thing.
Yep.
If you're only going in to get that, you're going to be discouraged and walk away, and that will kill the sport.
Yes, that will absolutely. No, and that was a mentality that I had to fix because, you know, were it up to me, I mean, I don't know if I necessarily would have just straight up bailed.
But at the same time, it's like you have to think of it this way. If you came in 4th place out of 5 guys versus 4th place out of 20 guys, and the reason you came in 4th place out of 20 guys was because so many people got encouraged to compete because they weren't always necessarily sweating 1st place, it would feel more rewarding because that 4th place is you beat a lot of guys. You know what I mean? Like, as opposed, you know what I mean? Like,
well, in any level of competition is going to improve the sport. You know, it's just like capitalism,
exactly.
if you will, right?
Yeah.
The more people competing, the better for the audience, the better for the competitors, the better packages you're going to see on stage. Because that's the phrase, right? People say package.
Well, I don't want to look at anyone else's package, so I think that's a good place to stop, where we talk about other people's packages.
Oh, touche.
So listen, I think that, like, so I'm going to say I think we did a swap here from the beginning. I am pro going in to win, but I'm anti having that be the only reason.
Yep, I am pro going into. I mean, you're shooting for a win. Your best is
should be there.
Call it the best you can do, but ideally, you want the best you can do to be a win. Right. At the same time, I wouldn't say, you know, put all your eggs in that basket. Your entire self-worth shouldn't be hinging on how well you do or the conditioning you reach. You know, sometimes there is some learning involved. So I guess we did do a bit of a flip-flop there.
But I like how you included eggs in the basket. I know as part of the package.
Oh, punny. No pun intended. Wow, that was not funny at all, but I'm glad you laughed.
Don't worry about it. I'm just laughing because I'm thinking about the eggs in your package. This is going downhill. Sign us out, Nick. Sign us out.
It's going nowhere. All right, thanks you guys for joining us on Disruption. The show is brought to you today by Saisei Sports, makers of Rect pre-workout. Learn more at www.saiseisports.com. We'll have a link in the description. That's SAISEI Sports. Follow us on Instagram at Saisei Sports, and please like us on Facebook. Today's show was produced by myself, Nick Lefebvre, along with my co-host, Christian Matyi. Anything to say, Christian?
Well, talk to you later, guys. Thank you.
Thank you guys for joining us. Have a good one.